Jason Tracy, Coffee and Grit. If you want to know how to build a business that you love, with the team that you love, with the clients that you love, you've got to check out this episode. What does it take to be a successful entrepreneur? A dangerous amount of coffee and a ton of grit. My name is Jason Tracy, and every week I interview business leaders to share their stories, life lessons, failures, and advice with you. Welcome to Coffee and Grit. What is up? What is up? What is up? Welcome back to another episode of Coffee and Grit. You know, one of my favorite quotes out there is an anonymous quote from the Navy SEALs, and it's in times of chaos, we don't rise to the occasion. We actually fall back to our training. And it's something I've been preaching a lot to the boot campers, the entrepreneurs I've been working with, the difference makers I've been working with in boot camps, because a lot of times we think when we go out there and we do business, we've got to be somebody else. We've got to act differently. And my whole point, my whole message is like, it's being you, but it's being so comfortable. It's mastering your voice and getting comfortable doing that. And when you go out and do that, a lot of times it's like looking for a spouse, and you're like really like you're going out there and you're really that desperate. You're looking for somebody. How often do you actually find that person versus you go out and you're just living your life. You're doing the things that you love to do. And then you meet that person that is your person. Right. And it's the same thing in business. A lot of times we go out there and we think that we got to be something different, or we're really stressing to get business, or we're really stressing to meet people and build really good connections. But the truth of the matter is, if you go out there and you do life the way that you do life, you do the things that you enjoy, that you start to meet and build connections with people from all over. And I say that all in a long about way of everybody that listens to the show knows how much I love playing basketball. And so that's something that I do a couple times a week on Tuesday nights, Saturday mornings. And it's those little things when you're going out and, you're hooping, you're having fun. And then the people that you meet along the way and kind of the relationships you build. It's something that's been kind of cool. I've talked about how I love playing basketball with my son and how Jackson's been coming and playing basketball with us, but it's been really cool to show him how relationships are built. And it's actually going to come full circle here. As my guest today, Nate Varilone from Varilone Construction. My son Jackson, actually, just from playing basketball, from building a relationship, is actually going to work with him this summer. And so, just outside of that, people always ask me, how do I find guests? How do I build these connections and these relationships with people that I've had on this show? And it's exactly that. It's going out and living life. It's going out and doing the things that I love to do. And then you get to meet really cool people along the way. And me and Nate have been playing basketball now for at least 3 years together.
We started playing. Were you playing when we were at the YMCA in Milford?
So a couple times, but it was mostly at HVAC by the time we got playing.
Yeah, so it's been going on 10 years, but we've been playing for sure for 4 or 5 years together.
Okay. Yeah, so like 5, I started playing right before COVID with the group.
Right.
So,
yep. Yeah, which is a lot of fun. It's an important part of my weekend too, because we go out and we work so hard during the week. I always, Shelly, my fiance, can always tell if I have a good Saturday, it's generally because I went and played basketball first.
Yes.
Not that that's the determining factor, but it's just such a good start to the weekend. It's good for connections. Jackson, we're super excited for him to work with us.
And he's pumped.
Summer. Yeah.
I crossed him right as I was leaving to come here, and I'm like, I'm going to interview Nate. And
cool.
And I verified with him. I was like, do you know how to pronounce his last name?
Good. So you didn't get it right still.
No, we still didn't get it right. So I was like literally looking to see if there's any videos of you online, because we've never, I've seen your name so many times.
Well, again, it's an argument at the dinner table during the holidays. Some people think it's Varilone, some people think it's Varilone, but we stick to our guns at Varilone. So.
Definitely. But that's, it's such a good point. We as entrepreneurs, the driven people, we're out there, we're doing our business, and it can be very easy to get away from the things that we love to do. Mm-hmm. And so it's so important to take that time. And even, at basketballs last weekend, you were talking about how important it is to give your guys the weekend versus working 7 days a week.
Yep. And that's hard to do sometimes, especially, right now we're feeling the pinch of the busy season, going into this summer. All our exterior stuff is starting. We're still keeping our interior jobs going, and it's hard to take those weekends off, and me not to go to the guys and say, hey, I need you on Saturday. But it's important to me. I mean, I ask my guys to work Saturday maybe twice a year, because we work hard Monday through Friday, And those guys get their, 45, 50 hours in Monday through Friday. And then we spend time with friends and family, That's important to relax on the weekends. My favorite thing to do is just that, relax, not do a whole lot of much on the weekend because I'm so go, go, go. We were talking about before we, went live here that I'm just so naturally wired. I'm just constantly go, go, go during the week. So it's nice to step back,
Have you always had that energy and that kind of go, go, go?
I've always had it. Yeah. When I was a kid, I was a football guy, growing up, and I was the kid, running every day and going to the gym for longer hours than most people. And, I just have always had that drive, so it's nice to put it into, you got talking in the introduction about, the connections and really enjoying what you do. And that just so hits home because I couldn't stop thinking in my own head that I find myself a lot lately telling people, man, I love what I do. And I'm fortunate to say that I love working. I love running my business. I love making the connections, but I love building things. And I'm just so fortunate to be able to say that I love what I do.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on, because I can see that. And just even playing basketball, but talking to you, I can see the passion and the energy that you have in your eyes when you talk about what you do.
Yeah, it's. I mean, my construction's been in the Varilone's blood for generations. My grandfather, my family's from Italy, and when my family came over and settled in the Detroit area, my grandfather opened Varilone Construction. And it was him and his partner. That's what the VAR comes from. And he was an excavator. So he started an excavation company. And then my dad kind of followed in his footsteps. And my dad has been a very successful business owner and was in commercial construction for many years. And we still do some projects together, which has been a lot of fun. Cool. So I'm kind of third generation construction owner. But we've all created our own, which has been cool too.
Well, that's really cool, and I don't really know the full story, and I know you talked about your dad, and I know that your dad is partners with Coach Brish over at
Stan.
And
we call him my Uncle Stan. He's not our blood uncle, but,
but so I'm like, I didn't know if you ended up taking over the company, if you had your own company, how that all worked out.
Yeah, I kind of I never knew, like you said again in your intro. I didn't know I was going to fall into construction. My dad's been in it forever, and I remember him waking up real early in the morning, getting home late at night, still made it to all our sports stuff and all that stuff. He had that flexibility because he was a business owner.
Yeah.
But, I never really worked for him. I labored for him a couple times, and I never thought I was really going to be in construction. I thought I was going to be a teacher for a long time. And because I love kids, but I realized I didn't love kids enough to be around them all day, every day.
To make it a career, yeah.
Right. So, I was going to school. I was working for a guy that was kind of a jack of all trades, does similar stuff that we do. His name is James. He's been a great mentor to me over the years. Still a good friend of mine. His dad was a master plumber. He knows how to run electrical. He knows how to, do some light framing. He's a, real talented tile guy, tile installer. And I worked for him for 3 years. And then I was going to school and I did an internship for this large construction company, Aristio. They're, bigger company. They do some work with General Motors and whatnot. Okay. And I worked with them for a summer and it was not what I wanted. I was obviously still young, but I was working underneath the man who was working underneath the man who was working underneath the man, so on and so forth. And that's when I was at that internship, that's where I started my first company, Varilone Tile. I picked up the tile trade from James and I ran with it. And my first winter in business, I didn't know how I was going to make it. Like any business owner, when you first start a company, you're taking a jump off of the cliff.
Yep.
And, I remember I had just bought a house. I had like $7,000 to my name or something like that.
Yep.
After I bought the house and did a couple improvements and I was starting a business and it's like, I got to go make my paycheck. I landed a gig where I did 2 new construction houses that winter. I tiled the whole thing, 2 or 3 bathrooms in each house, laundry room, kitchen backsplash, that sort of thing. And it just took off. During that time, I started marketing. I was able to hire somebody by January that year, and this was 2018.
Okay.
And it just took off, and we started growing and growing and growing.
That's amazing. So what do you think it was that like you open up and then you just take off like that?
A handful of things.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to take the risk, right?
Yep.
And you have to be self-motivated. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing. And I was self-motivated to try something on my own. And going back to, conversations with my dad, we talked a lot early on. When I was first starting my first company, I called him all the time. What do I do about this? What do I do about that? How do I handle this? How do I handle that? And he mentored me a lot too. And I think he got a little sick of me too. Calling him all the time. He's probably
I've got my own business to run.
So, he told me, you better really love what you do if you're getting into construction, because it's cutthroat and, like a lot of industries are these days, but you better really love what you do. And I had no idea at that time what it was going to turn into. I mean, it's you fast forward, I opened another company, Varilone Tile and Remodeling. We started doing full remodels, bathrooms, kitchens, basements, stuff like that. And that transformed into my last rebranding and my hopefully final company. This is my baby now, really.
Yeah.
Varilone Construction, and we're a full construction outfit. We do basically everything outside of new construction houses. We're not set up to go build a new house right now. Could we do it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But, we do additions, still all those remodels. And we still go as low as, or not as low, but as small as getting contracted just for tile jobs. And I have a tile crew that is very talented. They love what they do. They're timely, they're professional, and they basically run tile jobs all year round. So I never knew when I started that it was going to turn into this. We have 25 plus subcontractors that we work with on a daily basis, and we have 6 in-house employees.
Yeah.
And an estimator, and it's just really, it's been so fun. It's been hard. It's been excruciating.
Yeah.
But it's been so fun.
I love it because it's exactly, for entrepreneurs and the people that are out there, that whether they're just starting or they're like in that spot where it's like they're trying to grow.
Sure.
It's looking back at it to know that it is worth it. Is it hard? Is it excruciating? Yeah. You got to put a lot of hard work into it, and there's blood, sweat, tears, all of it. Yeah. But would you trade it for the world?
No, I wouldn't. The only thing I traded for is my family.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that being said, I've said to people before, and I don't know how true this is, but I've said to people, man, if I could go back and you could have told me all the pain and difficulties I went through to run this company, I might not have done it.
Yeah.
It's just so much more than you could ever imagine. I've been in uncomfortable situations all over in every way you can think of,
Yep.
I mean, any business owner, you run into situations, you can't make some of this stuff up,
Just when you think you have it all down, something new comes about.
Yes. Every time.
Well, and you think of even like the scaling, because that's pretty quick, starting in 2018, like really a 7-year window of going from tile to a full out construction company. That takes a lot of growth, and I'm sure you're not, plugging into the field every day. You're now doing something different in your business.
Oh yeah. It's turned a little bit into like stabilizing mode.
Yeah.
We've gotten into this bigger construction company. We're still a small business in the grand scheme of things, but we like the size that we are. But it's kind of like stabilize, refine what we're doing now. You know what I mean? We've got a good crew. We've got fantastic employees. My office manager, Tammy, she worked at GM for her, career.
Yeah.
And then she retired from there And we were remodeling her bathroom. She saw our truck drive by one day, so she called us. We set it up. We started the job, and I hired her in the middle of the job to come work for us.
That's crazy.
And she's fantastic. My project manager, Todd, that's come on recently in the last year, he's changed the game. His construction knowledge is fantastic. And all our guys in the field, they're just phenomenal people. And I try to let them know that, verbally and financially.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just lucky to have what I have. And it did scale so quick. And it's like, it's been uncomfortable at times because of how quick it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, we were going 50% increase in sales for a couple of years in a row. And then we went 30% and then 20%. Now we're kind of getting to where we want to be. It's been a lot, but it's been really great.
It's like the more money, more problems, in the sense of like, not in a good way of like things you've got to like problems you've got to solve.
Yep.
Challenges. And then once you solve it, you're putting your systems in place.
Yep. And I complain about it too. I complain about the bumps in the road.
Yeah.
But those are the things, that you're going to miss one day, solving the problems and dealing with the chaos and dealing with all the moving parts. That's the fun stuff. That's the stuff that keeps us going.
Yeah. It's and I love how you said my baby, because it's the same thing as like looking at kids, and we can complain about the whole like growth process. Your kids are 10 right now, right? And like the whole things, and there's the great things in there, but then there's like the pain of the growth and stuff like that. And you just want them to get it but that's the fun stuff. That's the stuff that you look back, I'm looking back now at Jackson being 17 and being like, remembering those times.
Right. And it's so funny that you talk about connections and stuff, and Jackson working for us. Jackson is also my stepson's name.
Yeah.
As you know.
Yeah.
Jackson and Holly. I'm marrying their mom in October, actually. So it's an exciting year.
Yep.
And then we're thinking about maybe having one of our own at some point, but we'll see where that goes. But Jackson and Holly, they're, like you said, there's so many, like, I learned so much from them, actually.
Yeah.
And actually things that I bring into business. I mean, there's so much patience and understanding, and those two kids are so empathetic, and they're such sweet kids. They teach me a lot. I mean, it's been really cool that they came into my life. I told you earlier, that's the only thing I'd trade my business for, is my new family,
I've had a conversation with my wife about this, Gracie, and I'm like, I talked about like we've played basketball together for like 5 years or so, and so it's been a while. It's like a blink, but it's like it's been a while. But I'm like, from first meeting you to now, like I can see, and I told my wife, like since you met your fiance, since the kids have come into your life, you can see like you have a different level of empathy. You can see like this different like version of you. Not saying you're a bad version here, but you can see like it's like impacted you in a good way.
Right. And I feel that, and that's cool to hear from the outside coming in too, because it does feel like it's made me grow. It's made me a better person. It's adding moving parts to already a lot of moving parts, running a business and then, being part of a family. But, I get a lot more than I give out of that. I mean, Shelly, she's phenomenal. I don't know how she, her mom's very supportive, the kid's grandma.
Yeah.
But those two do so much for those kids. It makes you just see a whole nother side of life. And I admire Shelly so much for everything she's done. And it's really cool to, just be a part of that. Just like it is with business, you grow into something and it's just cool to be a part of it.
Yep. That's so cool. Yeah, so cool. Missing back, and it's funny talking about the intro and talking about like just going around and like doing life and then meeting people. There's so many people that struggle to hire and find the right people, and then you're talking about telling a story of like somebody that hired you to do their bathroom, and you come back and you hire them.
Right. Oh yeah, it was really cool. I was like, she's like, yeah, this she's talking to me about Tammy. This is our office manager, who she's trying to retire at the end of the year. I'm trying to talk her out of it. But so we're on her job, and she's she's talking about how she wants something to do. She's, kind of bored, and because she's similar to me in the respect of she's a go person.
Yep.
She's very, she cares about what she does. She's ingrained in what she does, and she wants to go. So sitting around retired is not for her. So, she'll find something to do in some capacity with us.
Yeah.
Even when she does retire, we've talked about it, is it, staying on part-time as, our designer still, because she does a lot of design work for us. What does that look like? But she wanted something to do, and I, on the spot, just said, come work for us. Because that was another, at that point in time when we were doing her bathroom, that was another stepping stone in the growth process.
Yeah.
We need to get that office manager. We've got several employees now. We need to make that next step.
Isn't that cool? Like when you're looking for something, it just kind of appears right there.
And it couldn't have worked out any better. She's been great. She does our scheduling. She, she's the first person that talks to all of our clients outside of our estimator, that goes to the jobs and talks about the jobs and gets the measurements and details. And then Tammy's the one that, warms up the customer, she's such a good, get with the customer, get them the information they need, and make them know who we are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that because there's a lot of bad contractors out there, that'll do you wrong. And that's, we stand by the fact that we're not always perfect, but we are always going to make it right.
Yeah.
And she lets the customers know that right off the bat.
It's like the whole culture of the business. And when you can put the right people in place, that the clients are being taken care of, right?
Yep. And I don't have to doubt, she doesn't have to check in the morning. I don't doubt that she's getting what she needs to get done. And that's powerful to have people like that. And most of my employees not most of them, all of my employees are like that. I don't have to babysit. I like to, my job obviously as the owner and, a manager is to make sure things are flowing well and things are where they need to be and being done how they need to be done. But I don't have to, I find myself micromanaging less and less, over the years.
If you had to put distinct systems and processes in place, or do people just kind of fall in line with the way you do things?
We do, and we're still kind of in that growing phase where we have unwritten processes and procedures.
Yeah.
And we have unwritten training and development, but I'm very hands-on too. I love what I do, and I love that I can sit at my desk and do all the stuff that actually I found I like being in the field more, but I can get the stuff done at the desk. I can spend a couple days at the desk. I can spend a couple days in the field, and I like going in and working with the guys too, laboring, doing a demolition, setting some tile, framing, whatever it is. I'll get in there and do it because I enjoy doing it. And, just kind of full circle back, I'm very engaged with all of our projects. So, if we bring a new guy on, they're seeing me, they're seeing our project manager, they're seeing Tammy, our office manager, they're working with our other employees, Bobby, our head carpenter, Brecken, our head tile guy, Elijah's kind of our head floater. He's a great kid, can basically do anything we need him to do and be wherever he needs to be. We have another guy named Justin. He's a great laborer, just a good guy. We have another laborer, and then we have Jackson coming on, this summer. And it's just fun to have these guys and see them develop. And it's should we have written processes and procedures in play? Yeah, we should. And we're in the process of kind of still growing.
Oh, for sure.
But we're also hands-on that we make it clear what we need, how we need it, where we need it.
Yep.
And it's growing. It's still growing.
Yeah, it's one of those things that sounds like everybody kind of falls in line. So I was wondering about that from the process standpoint, but it also makes sense that in the 7 years, you're really even in like the restructuring of your business, you're really putting the process in place as you're going.
Yeah, it's and you talked earlier about how quickly we scaled.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's been a balance between scaling too quick and also keeping that sturdy foundation. You know what I mean? Because a couple years ago, we did make some jumps a little too quick and some things were falling through the crack. We had to step back, and it was an uncomfortable couple months, and we had to, fill those cracks, so to speak.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because the more stuff that falls through the cracks, the less money, I make.
Yep.
The less money, all my guys make and bonuses and whatnot. And, and then you have customers who aren't, not necessarily upset, but, they're not where you want them to be.
And they
smiling
could be,
and beaming.
They could be upset, but they're also not going out and singing your praises either.
Sure. And that's what you want.
Yeah.
You ask any business owner, what's the most important thing? Customer service, right? You want customers to refer you. You want to be able to go out and, look every customer in the eye and know that you gave them your best.
Yeah.
And you made things right at the end of the day, no matter the circumstance.
Well, that's what I was thinking. Even when you talked about first starting and you got these 2 jobs, and then all of a sudden it just kind of exploded. I was wondering, do you get a lot of referrals?
Yeah, so we've been so fortunate to get a lot of just word of mouth stuff over the years.
The best advertisement ever.
Yeah, for sure. And then that first winter, I joined BNI. I joined the Commerce Group, and BNI is Business Networking International.
Yep.
I know you know what BNI is, but for people that don't know.
Yep.
And I joined as the tile guy and just started making those connections, and slowly but surely those connections kept making sense. And when I was in the rebranding phase, my painter, Ryan, he called me. He's actually also one of my close friends. He called me and he said, I was in Chicago, and he called me and said, hey, this spot just opened up at the Birmingham Group. And the Birmingham Group is, always competing for the top 2 or 3 places in Michigan in terms of
BNI.
Numbers and, BNI numbers. Exactly.
Yeah.
So I went and joined that group as the tile guy, and then soon took the residential remodeler spot. And now I'm the builder of the group, and it's been great.
That's awesome.
It's more connections, more people, more opportunities.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's getting out there and doing the things, meeting the people.
Yep. For sure. Which I'm not as, Ryan, my buddy, who's a painter, he's a very, social butterfly. He loves the marketing. He's always got these new ideas to market and all this stuff. And I'm not as much like that. It's more unnatural to me to do the networking thing.
Yep.
I like to be in the trenches, running jobs.
Yep.
The networking thing is more uncomfortable for me.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Because you're used to being in the trenches and doing the jobs.
Yep.
So how long have you been doing the B9, did you say?
So I joined right when I started my company in 2018.
Okay,
and I
so
still had, at that point, I still had the 3 years of experience, of working with James.
Yep.
And that was great. So then that, allowed me to launch the company. I got involved in BNI, and I think it was right before COVID. It's funny how COVID's like a landmark in time now.
It's a landmark in time, yeah. And it's funny because it's either like yesterday or like 100 years ago.
Right.
Depending.
So joined the Birmingham Group, and that's been great for me.
It's awesome to have groups like that. I belong to a group called CirrusNet that's very similar to BNI.
What's it called?
CirrusNet.
Oh, okay.
In fact, Steve, he's been on the show a couple times, avid listener. Probably if you're listening right now, Steve, what's up? And so he was in BNI, and then long story short, ended up starting his own thing. And so CirrusNet has been fantastic, kind of that same thing, only one professional in each group. The one thing that's different is like Steve is a facilitator, and the members aren't facilitators. So like we just show up and do the thing, and Steve runs the group, which is awesome.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
But it's getting out there and the things like this, and especially for people that are used to being in the trenches and doing the things, it gives you kind of that platform to like, one, practice and get yourself out there and get comfortable doing something that you haven't done before.
Yep. And people always say, work on the business, not in the business.
Yes.
I'm never fully going to be able to do that because I love working in the business.
Yep.
But that's still, that's been pressed upon me over the years. Not only by other people, but just the pressure of growing a business.
Yep.
you've got to work on the business, and that goes back to, scaling too quick versus, creating that solid foundation. And it's like, in a construction project, you pour the footings first, you pour the foundation first, right? You do the flat work first, and sometimes with growing a business, you're pouring the foundation as you're framing, You
put the roof up, but it's like got no foundation yet, so it's still laying on the ground. That's a great analogy, because that is how entrepreneurs were putting the house, our business together, you know, and it's kind of like, because a lot of times it's like people start their business because they have a purpose, a passion, expertise, something that they love to do, or they're like, starting this thing, but they don't know how to do the business part of it.
Right.
That is the learning curve, and that's where a lot of the pain is at.
There's so many talented contractors that don't make that jump to running a business. And some of them are some of the best contractors in the state. And I truly believe that I have some of those people, and they're so valuable. And I always tell my guys, well, maybe if they listen to this, they'll be like, oh, you don't tell us enough. So I'll tell you more, but they all have their value, right? And it's so valuable to have these people that are willing to work hard for you and are so talented at their trade.
Absolutely.
I mean, they show up every day. With the team that we have right now, I've been in times in business where I have so much anxiety and struggle in a day because so-and-so's not showing up, or so-and-so's not calling back, or so-and-so didn't, follow up to the team message about what the plan is, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And then sometimes they don't show up. And, I've gone through my phases where I've had to fire people, and that's always uncomfortable, because it's not just, all right, you can't work here anymore. It's, a lot of those people have kids and families, and, that's one of the hardest things, probably the hardest thing in business, is to let someone go. And there's nobody that is on our team right now that I even have to consider that right now. And that's just, it's just a breath of fresh air.
Yeah. I bet everybody listening right now that has employees is like, I want to know what he's doing, because, and I'll, I always say stories are data to a soul. That's my key concept in this in the podcast. The stories are data to a soul.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is, if for those that are listening to Nate talk and to you telling your stories, you've talked about every one of your people, and you've named them by name, and you've talked about how amazing they are at what they do. That's not something that's fake, right? That's like
I made the name.
You made the names up. These people don't even work for you. But it's one of those things as you're listening. That's who these people work for. And
right.
You can see the true, genuine care that you have for people, and that you truly see the contributions that they bring to help you be successful, and it makes the whole team successful.
Sure. And, one of my guys, my head tile guy, Brecken, he's been with me for 5 or 6 years, and he's seen the company grow, and he's seen the ups and downs, and, he makes more, and his bonuses are more, and the company does better. The employees do better. The company does better. We have better tools and equipment. And, we just bought another company truck. We have nice, Dodge Rams, with our company logos wrapped all over them. And we have nice trailers, and, we have nice equipment, and we have a nice office and a nice shop. And, we didn't always have those things.
Yeah.
And it grows, and you get those things, and the employees appreciate those things. Because I'm always dumping money back into the business. I'm not skimping out on, I just truly believe that, because I like it, working in a nice, clean atmosphere. We just built our new office, actually, right off of Milford Road near 96 there.
Okay.
And it's such a convenient spot because it's right there.
Oh my God, right there on the highway. That's awesome.
So, and that's been great. We have a beautiful brand new office that we built, and more shop space, and it's been great.
It's all those little details. It's all the inches around you that contribute to helping your employees be happy. And I'm emphasizing on this because there are so many people that are like, it's so hard to find good people. You know, it's so hard to keep good people. But it sounds like you have a team that's genuinely happy.
Yeah, and I can't, rest knowing that either.
That's
I have to
exactly
continue to, and I like to think that part of the reason I have and still have those people is because I'm saying this right now, that I have to continue to, let these people know that I want them and that they're valuable, and because they truly are. I mean, they're, and they're great people too. And they're, we have, relationships. There's always that, as the owner, you have to walk that line of, being able to joke around with your employees. And, I maybe probably flirt with that line a little bit more because I want those guys, I want to be on a personal basis with those guys too, and not just be the guy that they have to tiptoe around a job site on when I'm around.
Yep. Yeah. It's a very delicate line in that leadership role when you have a team. And I'm always that same way too of, one, you can roll up your sleeves and join the job and joke around with the guys and have that bond where, like you said, they're not walking on eggshells.
Right.
And that communication piece is so huge in the sense of just getting to know people. And when people don't feel like they've got to hold back who they are.
Sure. You got to build that team environment.
Where'd you learn this from?
I don't know. Well, okay, I do know. Playing football growing up, being on, I went to Milford High School. I played football my whole life. That was the first time running a business and having a family and playing football were the greatest feelings I've ever had in my life. When I first stepped on the football field and started playing, I just knew that I loved it and I wanted to do it again and again and again. So it was, like a lot of people's life, you go through that awkward stage where, all right, sports are over, I'm too small and not fast enough and not strong enough for the next level.
Yep.
But so where do I go from here? And you go through that awkward phase of trying to figure it out, and everybody has to figure it out.
Yep.
And that's like such an uncomfortable phase when you go from 18 to like 22, 23, 24, whatever it is.
Trying to fill that void of stepping on the field.
Yep. And I went through a lot of struggles during that time. And, it came, to the point where I, started working for James. And I'm so grateful to James for all the mentorship he did.
Yeah.
But it's just such an awkward, like, how do you, football ended. Well, what, and you're getting slapped in the face with life. Like, this is real now. I'm not living under my parents' roof anymore.
Yep.
Although I did move back in at one point, and they, helped me get kind of on my feet when I was in part of that awkward phase.
Yep.
But, you want to find that next thing. And when I started my business, it was rough for the first, couple years trying to get it off the ground and the long hours of laboring and, all that stuff. But that feeling of, playing football is there when I'm running a business.
Yeah.
And it's there when I'm with my family going on a vacation or going to the Tigers game on Saturday, So
whether they lost or not, right?
Yeah. We've gone to like the last 4 Detroit sports events we've gone to, they've lost every single one.
I thought of you because you told me you're going to the Tigers game and you told me how the last Pistons game you went to, they lost. And I'm like, of course they lost. Nate's there.
And we went to the Detroit Tampa Bay game, one of their 3 losses.
Yeah.
So.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
But it's fun. And that's the stuff like in that awkward phase you try to find and, that family atmosphere and that business atmosphere that kind of turns into a family atmosphere in itself. Those are the things you're looking for.
I love it. And it's like you said, you go through and you try to find that next thing. There's so many people that don't find that next thing.
Right.
And they're finding their whole life trying to fill that void of that thing that they had that lit them up when they were younger and they can't find it.
Right. Yeah. And you can't lose that child mentality, right?
Yeah.
Like children are so happy, and Jackson and Holly, part of what I learned from them is they're so happy and they let go of things so easily.
Yeah.
Which doesn't come easy to me. But we may get in little bicker or something as a family, and they're so ready to be past it so quick. And I take that into business, and it's like I get frustrated with customers, with suppliers, with employees, with subs. And, part of my success just in life in general and business is you can't hold grudges and nothing is personal,
Yep.
And Shelly might watch this and say, oh, you take things personal sometimes.
Our wives always know.
and you don't let go of things sometimes. But, again, like I said in the beginning, I'm not perfect. My business isn't perfect, but we always try to make things right.
Yeah. Yeah. What was that? Do you have a funny first firing story, or like, hey, I think of my first one.
None of them were funny.
Not funny, but they're all horrible.
It's just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Tell me yours.
So I was in this leadership position for this company, and I had this guy on the team that was a friend of mine that was like leading people in the wrong direction. Like he was a leader, but people were like, he was just lazy and he was doing this. And like, It was very apparent that I needed to fire him. It was very apparent that if I was going to continue being the leader of this organization, I had to take a step and fire this guy. And I came in to fire him, and I put it off all day long. Like, I put it off.
Miserable.
And I'm like, miserable all day long, thinking it's going to get easier. At some point it got harder and heavier.
Right.
And it's like, it's like a dog that knows you're about to put him down. It was like he said things that, like, you talk about family and stuff like that.
Yep.
His wife and mine were pregnant at the same time, and his wife was pregnant at the time. And he was talking about, he's like, I told Krista today that I'm gonna really step it up, and I'm gonna, really do a good job, and like, you're gonna do a different guy, and blah 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 blah. And I'm like, oh.
Whenever you're ready to make a decision like that, there's always something that comes up where you're like, oh, that makes me feel terrible.
Oh, it makes me feel terrible.
But business is business.
Business
and it's
is
nothing
business.
personal.
Nothing personal. The guy took it extremely personal. We were never really friends again. It was I waited till the close. We were all about to leave for the day. I'm like, hey, can we talk for a second?
Yep.
Fired him. He went off on me. Like I said, we were never friends again. However, this guy went on, found his passion, opened up his own business, has a restaurant out in Eaton Rapids.
He should be
done really
thanking
well.
you.
Has been on TV. Like, he's at a TV show, like a reality TV show for Food Court Wars with this restaurant that he had.
That's awesome.
And so we were never good friends, but he has thanked me. He has reached out and thanked me for doing the hard thing.
Sure.
We were really good friends.
Sure.
And so that never rekindled.
That complicates it even more.
But since that time, there are so many people that I've let go or fired that I've lost sleep over that have went on to thank me. I've had so many people that have started their own business. One guy the other day, he literally just posted. He's a serial entrepreneur. He owns restaurants all over the state of Michigan. He just bought the Raven Club in Ann Arbor.
Oh, cool.
I remember when he worked for me. He worked in this downtown. I had a store downtown Ann Arbor, and he worked for me. And I saw this guy that was he was a young entrepreneur. He was like a lion being caged. I saw this guy, and I'm like, he has no business being in a job. He is a bad employee, but I can see him like he's gonna make it someday.
Sure.
So I fired this guy, and I commented. We've kept in touch. He's been on the podcast. And all this stuff. We've done some collaborations together, and he's responded on I said, man, I remember him then talking about the Raven Club because it was across the street from our location, and talking about how much he loved this place. And he was on this post the other day was like, it's been a dream of mine for years. And I was like, man, dude, I remember that. Congratulations. And he said, thank you so much for firing me. And I'm like, man, that's exactly it. I saw the lion that was being caged in. There was more for you. You were a horrible employee, but I loved you, dude.
Right.
Like, there was something about you that I could see that you were going to go on and do something. It just couldn't be for me.
Right.
you know?
Right.
But then I've had people that I've fired that have then hired me to coach them.
Right.
When I started my business. So
That's
it's one of those things. It's like all the sleep that I lost and all that kind of stuff. It's like I had to really realize I was doing the right thing for the people that weren't the good fits for our company. They weren't the good fits for our culture.
At the end of the day, you have to do what's best for your business.
Yep.
I mean,
that's absolutely
and that's what you had to make that uncomfortable,
because
decision.
I would always say I was a director of sales for a cell phone franchise, and I would always friends or people I'd meet in the community would be like, oh, I'm going to go into your store on, Friday. And I'd be like, oh, who's working on Friday? And I'd be like, oh, make sure you go see Matt.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, man, do I only have one good person?
Right.
Do I only have two good people that I'm
Right.
like, oh, make sure you see one of these two people?
Right.
And if I have to apologize for anybody on my roster, if I have to say, don't see this person, then my whole roster sucks because you're only as deep as your worst person, right? In basketball, if I know I'm your fourth or fifth guy, then we're going to probably have a pretty good day.
Right.
You know, if I'm the third guy, we're probably going to have a pretty rough day.
Yeah, and I'm usually pretty low on their skill level if we're, competing out there. But.
Yeah, but it's still the strength level of your team or whatnot.
Yep.
But it's you when your name's on the business or your reputation's on the business, you have to look at it like that, like it's a reflection of you.
And that's like my name
is literally
on the business. You know what I mean? We have, a big project downtown Milford right now that we've been working on for a couple of years. It was the old PNC Bank.
Mm-hmm.
We have our name plastered on the front of there. We have our trucks and trailers going around town all the time. We have to stand up to that Varilone name, and that Varilone name means a lot to me. It really does. I'm very proud of my family just in general. My great grandfather actually was he was the village gelato and ice cream maker in a little town called Villa Latina in Italy, just outside of Rome. And then they came over, and moved to the Detroit area. But I just have a lot of pride in that name.
Yeah.
And it, it's not something that I take lightly in naming my company that, It's a very creative name, I know. Varilone Construction.
What made then I start to ask that question, but I imagine with the pride that you have in your name, one, it holds you accountable to a standard.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's people. You do something wrong, people are looking for the name Varilone on social media. You do something right, people are looking for Varilone on social media.
Yep.
And it's sometimes you do. Not the wrong thing, but sometimes you do, like we talked about not being perfect as a business with all these moving parts, especially in construction. It's not a perfect science.
Yep.
Things happen and you make them right and you do the right thing. You don't make excuses and you stand up and, do it.
Yeah. What's some of the coolest jobs you've done recently?
Oh man, we're doing this is going to be the coolest year. That job downtown is really fun, right downtown Milford. It was the old PNC Bank. It was one big unit, and we got contracted to split it into 4 units. So phase 1 was getting the back apartment built. We built this beautiful back deck, this back apartment. It's up for sale right now, actually. So people looking for space in downtown Milford, we've got 2 condos down there, right above Main Street. So that was phase 1. And then phase 2, we moved into building the second front apartment, which is a really cool one because it's got windows plastered all across the front of the kitchen and living room. And you're looking at Main Street.
At Main Street.
Yep.
Ugh.
And also in that phase, we built the clothing store. It's called Peace, Love, and Threads. It's like a design bar clothing store.
Yeah.
It's a really cool spot. It's right on the corner there on Main Street. And then our final phase right now, and there's been a lot of bumps in this project. It's just you're remodeling an old bank. It's complicated. There's spots where you want to run stuff, and there's concrete in your way left and right. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of vaults in that building.
Yep.
And this last phase is going to be really cool because we're building 5 Loaves Cafe. It's got the original bank vault.
Oh, I was going to ask you if the vault was going to be in.
And that's a little walk-up coffee bar in there.
Man.
And, we've got the booths coming next week or maybe the week after. And, we're getting a mural painted on the wall, and it's really cool.
That's
a really
awesome.
cool space. So that's been a fun one, a pain in the butt one, but a fun one. And I told Todd, our project manager, who's been overseeing it, I said, man, we're going to be happy when it's done, but we're going to miss it. Being right there in town, and pulling up with trucks and trailers, and it's been fun for the last year and a half.
How cool is that going to be? Like, even as you're done, that's going to be something that's going to be there in your community forever.
Yep, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go eat at the 5 Loaves Cafe. I'm gonna go get clothing from the design bar. I'm gonna Shelly wants us to move into the condo, but but it's just really cool. We're going to actually work on a drone footage where we're going to get footage of all 4 units kind of at the same time.
Yeah.
You know, we're going to do a cool kind of production where the drone goes through, you know, one of the apartments and then through the clothing store and then through the cafe and then, you know, and we're excited about that.
That's so cool.
So,
it's so cool what you can do with content.
Oh yeah.
Man, I saw this really on Facebook a couple weeks ago. This really cool old barn that you're doing.
Yeah, that's a fun one too. That one's been, you know, talk about problem solving.
I was going to say some problem solving.
Well, the city wouldn't let us rebuild it because there's a height requirement. And if we rebuilt it as is, well, in the same location with the same dimensions, which is really what it needed. I mean, the thing was 10 or 15 years away from falling over itself.
Yeah.
So there's a height requirement. So if we built it to the new height requirement brand new, there'd be no space for that upper, you know, that second floor. That's going to be a really cool hangout spot with a walkout back deck and railing next to the pool and a tiki bar with a roll-up concession stand underneath. It's going to be really cool.
That's awesome.
But it's throwing a wrench in things that we basically have to shore it up and rebuild it while it stands because of the local ordinance. But problem solving.
Yeah, it's problem solving. And that's like, it's a key element in entrepreneurship, period.
Mm-hmm.
It's problem solving. You're constantly solving a different problem.
Yep. You're always solving.
That's sweet though. And I told Jackson when I saw that, I'm like, oh, this looks so cool. Like you're going to work on some really cool stuff.
Yeah. He'll get a taste of that barn. I think he's, when he gets out of school in June,
Yep.
he'll get to get in there when we're doing finishing stuff.
That's so cool.
So it'll be cool.
What year was that barn built?
God, what was it? It was late 1800s.
Okay.
It was late 1800s. Actually, the owner, Steve, brought me over there the other day. We had a meeting, and he said, hey, come look at this. And we walked around back. We tore off. The city let us tear this small structure off that we're completely rebuilding for the tiki bar and deck over top. But when we took that wall off, we found writing on there, and I can't remember what the year said, but it was late 1800s. And it said, drove the cow, May whatever, 18 whatever it was.
Yeah.
And then it said something else about it, and it was like notes on the old barnwood of this guy, you know, and all these houses behind this barn at that time are just farmland, you know, and you know, they were driving cows, whatever that means. Hurting them, or I don't know.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
I love history, and so that kind of stuff is really cool to like kind of peel back and.
Yep, and that's what makes the bank project. We just always call it PNC Bank.
Yeah.
But that's what makes the bank project and this barn project really cool, is that there's just history behind them.
Yeah.
You know, we're refurbishing these old spaces, but keeping some of the existing bones.
Yeah.
You know.
That's good because we talked at the beginning. You didn't ever see yourself in construction, but that's like to do stuff like that and to do projects that are so worth. You know, that's got to be exciting.
It's really exciting. It's, you know, and just to grow to this point where we're doing projects like this and have these opportunities. I mean, we're just blessed to have these opportunities and, you know, these doors open for us. And, you know, my dad's been helpful in opening doors for us. You know, I'm not shy to say that.
Yeah.
You know, he's mentored me so much along the way. You know, and it was pretty cool when, you know, I ran my business for 5 years-ish before he kind of said, hey, you know, I think he wanted me to prove myself a little bit, you know, and then he said, hey, let's do a couple flip houses together. And then we started doing some projects together. And we actually, our newest endeavor that nobody really knows about yet is we've got a house down in Florida that we're going to go take a trip down. It's going to be a treat to my employees, and we're going to go down there for a month at the end of the year and do a bunch of remodeling on this house that we're flipping down there.
That's awesome.
Just kind of a change of pace.
Yeah.
You know, the weather starts to go south. We're going to go down there, and I'll probably have to be back and forth a little bit with our projects here, but, you know, we're going to block off a month and spend the month together. And, you know, assuming they all can, you know, with families and stuff, you know, a couple of them might need to stay here, and that might not be a terrible thing either for our jobs here. But
Just
that's going to
people.
take some scheduling finesse for sure. And me and Todd kind of being in different states at the same time. But that's just a new cool opportunity that we're getting this year.
Yeah.
You know,
Just something again, take your team on, but you're getting some work done too.
yeah.
And
And 9:00 at nights hits, we're done with work. No, I'm just kidding.
like, oh damn, long day.
Yeah. No, they can go enjoy, Florida. You
Yeah.
know, they're gonna have a place to stay, and they're gonna, I think it's gonna be a really cool team building thing that I don't think these guys are ever gonna forget. You know.
Yeah. You should film that for sure.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
That's
to
like
get
a
some
real
content
world
made.
type
Yeah.
experience.
We're like throwing food at each other and stuff halfway through. Like, get out of here.
That's just a really cool, like I think in content and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so it's like ways that you're like doing things naturally and just
Right.
bring the camera and, and
Yep.
that's the whole cool month of experience.
Yeah. Yeah. It's gonna be cool. It's gonna be different. It's gonna be
Team bonding.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So there's that project coming up this winter. And then, we're just finalizing details on a garage and bonus room addition that we're doing right off Hickory Ridge in Commerce.
Okay.
Nice neighborhood over there.
Yeah.
We're adding this, 40 by 27 foot, I believe it is, 3-car garage and bonus room up above and expanding their laundry room. So that's kind of our next one that we're gearing up for. That's gonna, take us into the fall here.
Yeah. Yeah. How long that something like that takes? How long? A few months to do?
It's been a process because we go in our design phase, right? We're design build contractor. So we have an architect that we work with. She's very talented. She, we meet with the customer first just to, hey, what do you guys want to do? And it was October. It was late October. And, at that time when I look at the job, I just get a rough budget together. Hey, this is what I think it can cost. Okay, we're kind of in that ballpark. All right, well, let's sign a design agreement. We sign a design agreement for X amount, and we bring the architect in, and we, do renderings, schematic design, floor plans, site plans, HOA submittals, and then, permit, drawings for the city. So I have the permit drawings on my desk right now, and we're getting ready to launch on that. And we're just hammering out the final details, and we're excited about that one. But yeah, it's
a process.
Yeah, it's a process, and some of that time is customer driven, and some of it's us driven. Like, hey, we're busy with this or that, so we're getting you this revision next week, and our architect is busy with this or that. But it's we've had 4 or 5 revisions, just kind of massaging this thing to be right where we want it, and I think we're there right now.
That's killer. We've talked a couple of times recently. You're talking about this is like the busiest time in your career, and it's like making sure you can do all the jobs. And it's like the good problems to have.
Oh yeah. And you always like figure out ways to do the jobs and schedule the jobs, and because what we don't want to do, cardinal sin in construction is start a job and then have gap days all over the place. Mm-hmm. Have a week where you're doing nothing, or there's always gap days, right? A day here, a day there, a rain day here, a rain day there.
Yeah.
Unforeseen material delays or whatever it is. But scheduling's important because we want, it's better for the customer to get the job done quick and, efficiently and right. And it's better for us to get it done quick and efficiently and right.
Yep.
So that's a lot goes into, scheduling. That's where Tammy helps a lot. And, Todd's been more and more getting ingrained in our culture and how we do things. And, again, we're putting the roof on and pouring the foundations, at the same time.
Yep. At the same time.
And it's just exciting. But what I think what customers see in us, there's a lot of good construction companies out there. But I think what customers see in us is that we're going to do the right thing and we're going to work hard. We're going to work hard, and our name's starting to be known, a little bit, which is pretty cool around town, around Milford especially. And it's like, we're going to work hard.
That's so awesome. And again, I'm excited to see as you continue to grow.
Yep.
And this will be something I love having people back on, after a couple of years and like doing that update. And
Sure.
like, for example, I have a guy coming up, his name's Brian, and he owns a company called Fortis Group. And
Okay.
they do like security. And I had him on a couple years ago, and every time I check in on him, he's like, "Oh my God, since the last time I've been on, I've added like 300 employees." He was like, "My payroll is more than my house, what my my house is worth." He's like, "It's insane." It's like, and it's
crazy.
so cool to like, again, check in on that growth. And then we look at it, and the more growth you have to do on yourself.
Because you step back, and even the comment you just made about those 300 employees, you step back and, I have so many moving parts on a daily basis, and I'm like, in the grand scheme of things, we're still a small business.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I don't know how much bigger we want to get.
Yes,
we're pretty comfortable with what we got going on. I'll probably grow in some regard.
Yeah.
I mean, we will grow in some regard. That might not mean sales and employee numbers.
Yep.
But that might mean refining what we do and that sort of thing. But yeah, it's there's always growth in some way, and it means different things.
Absolutely. Because not everybody, again, not everybody wants to have that many employees to that standpoint or be in that position.
Sure.
But it's cool to see the growth throughout the stages.
Yep. Yeah, it's been fun to be a part of it and also see other, people in my networking, community and, subcontractors I have and employees I have, see the growth in all of them. I mean, that's so rewarding to have these employees that stick with you.
Yeah.
Know who you are and what you're about, and know that they don't ever have to worry about their check bouncing or you not having work for them on a Tuesday, or whatever it is, and those guys just building that loyalty with you and, sticking it out for you and working hard for you, And it becomes, I say you, but it becomes us working hard for us.
It's really, you're paying it forward because you kind of had that same experience with James.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, and James again has been a great. I actually golfed with him Tuesday at Golf League.
Nice.
He's a bogey golfer just like me, but he's a good guy, and I've always been, he's been a great mentor over the last decade, and he's good at what he does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has he still has his small company that he's got 2 or 3 employees. And, they do bathroom remodels and, he's happy.
It's cool. And what I think of though, and, from what you're talking about and having that team is as the owner, like how many people you impact and impact in the good way. Cause again, when people are happy with their jobs, they're probably happier in their life in general. They come home to their spouse and their kids and they're not miserable, like they're feeling good about life and what they're doing. And they're just thinking of the trickle effect that you have on your team.
Yeah. And that's not something I think about that often, but it is, when you get in certain situations, like having to fire somebody, you think about it.
Yeah.
Giving somebody a raise, you think about it.
Yep.
Hiring a new person, you think about it. But yeah, it is cool. I mean, it's like, my payroll gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It's not nearly, worth as much as my house, but
yeah.
it's, it's
insane. And, this guy's amazing. And he's just happy. He's like one of those guys that you see and he's got a smile for me. He was Jackson's football coach all through youth football and was just an amazing guy. Would always like his coaching staff was always the best coaching staff that Jackson's had throughout his, throughout sports period. Just a lot of great guys. But to see him grow something and then be like year to year excited is so cool.
Sure. Yeah. Because, the more stable our company becomes, it's, you feel better and better about what you do.
Yes.
There's less uncomfortability.
Yep.
Because you're refining things. You know what your employees expect out of you. You know what the subcontractors expect out of you. You don't always get those things, but that's where the management comes in.
Yep.
You refine it and you keep refining it. And there's so much power in satisfaction and growing a company and helping other people grow. And they're helping you grow at the same time.
Yes. Yeah. It's just like going back to the kids again.
Yep.
I was in leadership, in being a parent. Oftentimes we look at, and I hear people say it's lonely at the top when you're doing these things,
Sure.
but I think that's if you're doing it wrong. Because when you look at it, if you're really doing leadership the right way, you're growing from them just as much as they're growing from you.
Yeah, you should never, I mean, in my opinion, some people might disagree, and there's a lot of business owners that are more successful than I am.
Yep.
But you should never get so high up that, again, people are tiptoeing around the job site
Yeah.
or around the shop, or waiting for you to, snap at them or anything like that. You know what I mean? And I've learned, and I push myself over the years because, there's things that, are getting upset worthy in business,
Yep.
and you have to let the little things go. You have to let the little things go because you know what? If I'm on a job and doing this person's job, I'm going to make some mistakes too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it's like, I expect perfection, but never expect perfection. If we can make sense of that one.
Yeah. Well, you expect it, but you're not going to be all pissed off and
You
bent out of
push towards
shape
it.
if something goes wrong or something happens. Because one, that's a big learning lesson. Now,
Yep.
if it happens every single day, if that person keeps making a mistake, they're probably not a good fit, right?
Yeah, and you coach them up, and
Yeah.
you give them the opportunity to get better at those things. And all of my employees right now have committed to getting better at things, even if there's a situation where, like, hey, this is just not right. Like, you can't do it this way. You got to go back, tear this out, redo it, whatever it is. There's value in those things too. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back sometime in business. And
Yep.
you just kind of you build that into the cost of doing business.
Success is a horrible teacher.
Yeah.
If we just go out there and have a bunch of success, the
Yep.
problem is we don't know how do we recreate that? It's just happening. It's just working. We learn the most from our failures and from our mistakes
Yep.
and our challenges. When we got to go back and redo that over again,
Yep.
we learn from it. And if we don't, we're that person that's sitting there like, screw my life,
And it's so tough because there's no good time to make a mistake on a job, or there's no good time to have, there's no good time to put a screw through a water line.
Yep.
We've had a couple of those.
Yeah.
And any construction guy that comes on your show and tries to pretend like they don't have things like that happen is lying to your face.
Yeah.
But how do you handle it? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And those are the tough ones. But you refine those things. You try to find safeguards against those things, and things like that. They start happening way less. Even the little things. You know what I mean?
Yep.
They just start happening less and less.
Yeah. Yeah. I love how you tied this back to sports and football, because I love tying business, and I've been in sales my whole career, and I love tying and using sales sports analogies to sales, because you can look at yourself as like a business athlete in that sense. And, and really it is, it's that leading that team. It's that brotherhood, or, whether you have males or females on your team, it's that unity. We're all in this common bond. We're trying to win together.
Yeah. Look at the Detroit Lions.
Exactly.
I mean, 3 or 4 years ago, was it 4 years ago? They only won 3 games or 5 games or whatever it was.
Yep.
They did not have anywhere close to the most skilled guys in the league. And the next year, their roster was pretty similar.
Yeah.
But, Coach Campbell coached them up, refined things, put safeguards in, and just pushed them to be better. And what's really cool about Coach Campbell is he's a lot like people like you and I are.
Yes.
Coffee and grit, right?
Yes.
The grit in us, you push.
Yeah.
You be, he's self-motivated. He's persistent. You know what I mean? And you just refine things, and he didn't, now we got people coming our way, right? Great players and skilled play,
Yeah.
But
Because people want to play for Dan Campbell.
Yeah. Well, because he created that.
Yes.
He created that. And the guys that weren't that skilled 2-3 years ago, and these are still NFL players, so don't get me wrong, they're skilled people.
Yes.
But he's so good at progressing those people, and that's what a leader does.
Well, and look at, like, at the end of the season, we're playing the 49ers. And I remember at the beginning of the game, they had the injury list from both teams up on the board. And we had just about the same amount of injuries as, like, we were both devastated by injuries. But we're playing for the number 1 seed.
Yep.
or number 2 seed in the NFL, right? And they're not in the playoffs.
Right.
And that has to be an indication of the coaching, of the development of
Yep.
what Campbell and the coaching staff and that leadership team has done to raise players up. That you've got guys that are walking in off the street, signing with the team, playing, and are making a difference.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's fun to see, and it's fun to like you said, relate sports to business, because it is so they're so similar.
So similar.
I mean, that's what when I was playing football in high school, I mean, it was just like that. You play as a team, you play hard, you live and die together,
Yep. Yep.
And that has to be, to a certain degree, business. There's not as much emotion, in the sense of, let's go get them and whatever the case, there's not that screaming and yelling and hitting each other and, but there's that team atmosphere, and there's that we're in this together, and there's that, how do we get to this, goal?
How I've had success in my career from a leadership standpoint is from taking that sports mentality, but then also taking the story. And I think that you probably are doing the same thing in the sense of this is where we are and where we're going, and this is how you play the role, and this is what happens when you play this role. This is what happens to all of us. Like, we're all going to this place, and getting that buy-in from people, and then a couple years later, they see all that growth within themselves. And they can go start their own business, or they can go whatever they want to do,
or they jump up and they know, hey, I've earned that next position. I've earned that more money. I've earned that bigger end of the year bonus.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Because those guys, I want to create this culture where I'm not just providing a job, I'm providing like a livelihood for these guys. And, in our world today with prices of things and stuff, that's hard to compete with. And that's been a challenge we've dealt with over the last couple of years, like a lot of, probably business owners in every industry have.
Yeah.
But, materials have gone up, labor has gone up. I got to charge customers more.
Yep.
You try to be fair, and you try to make and earn what's yours, but, and you try to be fair with your employees too. But, these guys, they bust their butt out there, and they want, the best lives for themselves too.
Yep. Dan Campbell's a great person to bring up and align with the conversations that we've had, because outside of like the motivational standpoint and getting to know his team, another thing that you've talked about is like rolling up your sleeves and getting dirty. We all have seen the Dan Campbell doing burpees and, and that stuff. And those guys know that he'll go out and do that. You going out in the field and rolling up your sleeves and working with the team, I've always had that mentality too of like, you can lead, but if you're just, you've got to jump in and show them that you're not your work too.
Yep. Yeah,
especially when you love it, which is great.
Oh yeah, I love it, and I'm not prone to having a bad attitude on jobs either, and that kind of ties in with some of the stuff we've talked about being a leader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
You have to create that, I can be at times when you run into problem stuff, it's easy to be a complainer, right? It's easy to, shift that attitude, and all of a sudden you're, everybody can smell your attitude. You know what I mean? And in a leadership position, you can't let people see that. And,
I'm so glad you brought that up.
I do from time to time. You know what I mean? I'm not, embarrassed or anything to say so, because I learn from everything, right? I learn from that too, because I can see the difference in my team. Like, for example, if it's a Monday and I'm, complaining about this or that or the other, my team can see that, feel that, and that week is probably not going to be the most productive week.
Yep.
And all the little things matter.
Yep.
And me and Todd, my project manager, he, we've had to have conversations too about, man, you have to shift from the mentality of being in the field and being all buddy and maybe joking around a little bit too much sometime, I'm talking about myself, to, walking that line of, all right, it's still cool to joke around a little bit, but, it's not cool to create that bad work environment, no matter who you are, laborer, carpenter, tile guy, whatever it is.
Yep.
It's
such an excellent point. And I learned that kind of early in my leadership career, in the sense of like, if something came down from the boss and like I complained about it out loud, my team would instantly have have every reason to complain about it and not be on board with it. If I got something down from my boss at the time, I had to take my minute and pass my emotions and adjust to it and put a good spin behind it before I shared it with my team. And then every single time I could get buy-in behind it once I adjusted my attitude and my adjusted my capability, my I can get this done, attitude versus like, this sucks, you know?
This sucks versus what are we going to do about it?
Yes.
Because I often it's human nature to first go to it sucks and then move on to, what are we going to do about it? But, how do you train yourself to be more, go to what are we going to do about it?
What are we going to do about it? Because you said it's easy to complain or, have the negative attitude about it, but is it really?
Because it's more.
It feels good at the time.
It's more exhausting.
But it's more exhausting because then again, the problem's still there. You can complain about it all day.
Now you and everybody around you feel worse about the situation.
You
and
probably
then when you're
exasperated it.
finally ready to handle it, there's still a little bit of a, I kind of complained about it more than I should have, but now I'm ready to deal with it.
Yep. And sometimes becoming aware and realizing the time you wasted just complaining about it. Like, this time we'll just get it done.
We joke sometime on the job site, I remember several times with Brecken, we're putting a shower in, and like we're putting a tile in and, maybe the cut's like an 1/8 inch, not what it should be. And we'll spend more time talking about, well, can we adjust the tiles on the other wall to make it work? Or is that part of the caulk joint? And then we'll look at each other and we'll say, it's been 15 minutes. We could have done it 3 times just redone it 3 times by now, And that kind of ties in with the mentality of just doing it right. You know what I mean? Like not thinking of ways to cut those corners, but just taking it out, doing it right. You feel better about it.
And you didn't waste the time debating about it.
Waste the time. It's really silly.
And you're probably going to think about it after you did,
We'll literally say that to each other. We could have done it 3 times by now.
That is awesome. Man, Nate, this has been an awesome conversation.
I so appreciate you invite me on this. And, I think this is going to be great for what I was talking to Shelly about, like when we were going into this. I told her I was doing this a couple weeks ago. I post a lot of things on Facebook and we post things on our website that we're just launching a new website right now with Vince. And, what people see is jobs, finished pictures, all these things. But what a lot of people don't see is me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Me, like just talking and just being me. You know what I mean? I'm not standing here today and like pretending to be anybody or anything other than I am.
That's absolutely.
I'm a hard worker who's willing to get in the trenches, and I love running a small construction company. And that's who I am, and that's what you're going to get when you hire us.
And I love it because this is exactly what this does in the sense of why I even started podcasting in the first place is because I started my business and I was trying to like brand myself and get myself out there. And being in the coaching speaking business, I'm like, I knew I needed to create content.
Right.
But I'd sit in my living room and I'd make a video and I'm like, I don't really love doing this. I'm not getting any energy out of this. But I was going out and I'm that guy that I want to learn from other people. Like I'm going out and I'm doing the things, but I'm going out and having conversations with other coaches, consultants, other small business owners I see doing good things, or I like, you're making a name for yourself in this this community, whatever. I want to learn from you, and so we'd go out and have coffee or have conversations like this, and they'd sit and tell me these amazing stories, and like. Over time, I was feeling guilty because I'd come home and my wife was working a job that she hated. My day consisted of not getting business, but going out and having these amazing conversations, right? But like, I was getting better at business. I was becoming a better person. I was becoming a better husband. I'm listening to these stories. And in the meantime, I'm like, wow, like I never knew that about you. That's amazing. Like, and they're like, yeah, how do I tell that story? How do I share it? Or like, nobody knows that. Or, like I'm having and every single person was like, I'm having trouble creating content. I'm having trouble putting myself out there on social media and that kind of thing. It's like, I went out and I bought a GoPro, and when I'd have an awesome conversation, I'd say, hey, do you mind if I put up the camera and I'll make some content? Like we can just have this conversation. And I started creating this fire content, just clipping it out and putting it on social media. And the next thing I know, I'm getting my calendar's full. people are scheduling meetings with me, and I'm sitting down, I'm having conversations. They start telling me a story that reminds me of something that happened in my life. So I'm like, oh, that's so crazy. Like, and I start telling them my story. They're like, yeah, I know. I saw it in that video that you put out there. That's why I called you. And I was like, oh. And then like people are calling me up like, hey, that guest you had on that did this thing with the horse coaching, can you introduce him to me? Because my grandson needs to work. You know, like I think my grandson would want to go through that program. And it's like, oh, wow. This is like, I love it when a plan comes together. Like this thing is like actually working, right? And so that's really what it's been. One, being able to put a spotlight on myself, right? It's like, you know, selfish thing.
Of
like,
course.
Right? Being able to put a spotlight on the people that I see out making a difference in with, you know, in business and in the community and in leadership, making a difference in the world, pick their brain, put a spotlight on them. And then for the listeners that are business owners themselves, or they want to start a business, they get to hear from people that are going through this journey that they're not in a boat alone.
Yep.
Because what I realized, I'm out there having these conversations, and there's so many people that start a business, and they think that they have a unique challenge. And then one day they go, my other guest on Mike Gruley, and he's like, one day they go to Entrepreneurs Anonymous, and they're like, "Hi, I'm Mike. I'm an entrepreneur. I've got a problem." And they're like, "Hi, Mike." And he's like, "Yeah, one time I had this challenge, and it was so stupid. I bet nobody else has done that." And they're like, "Oh, you done that? I've done that 10 times." You know, like we're all going through even in different industries, going through very similar challenges. That if we listen to each other, we could really like learn a lot from each other.
For sure. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because we can all fall victim to, I mean, humans are selfish creatures. Right? You know, I can be selfish in a lot of regards, you know, sometimes good, sometimes bad, but you talk about the selfishness, like you have to be selfish as a business owner to a certain degree, but not too much. You know, there's that balance, especially with family. Yep. You know, that I've had to learn that, you know, I can put a lot into, you know, the business, and I can, you know, indirectly, you know, hurt my time with my family, you know, and there's got to be that time for both. And that's been a hard balance for me because, you know, I'm trying to go create a better life for us, but, you know, it's takes a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of time, and it takes a lot of passion to put into the business. And you get home, and sometimes I'm like, man, I'm exhausted. Yeah. I see everything that I have to deal with on a daily basis, and I think I'm unique. And I think that I, you know, have it harder than other people, and that I work harder than other people. And whether that's true or not true, there's a lot of people that work hard, and there's a lot of people that, you know, run businesses or don't run businesses that still are busy and work hard and, you know, are exhausted at the end of the day too. Yep. You know.
Absolutely. No, that's cool. But I really do think that you have the right mindset outside of just running your business, but having that balance and making sure that you're present with your family, because that's so hard to do when you're driven and when you love what you do. It's so easy to get buried in and work all night. You know, it's so easy to be thinking about that, you know, the time you wasted solving that problem, or, you know, did I do it the wrong way or cut the corner? You're thinking about all the stuff. Well, the family's right in front of you.
Yep. And that's been a learning experience over the years to, you know, shut it off when you get home to some degree. You know, you can't ever shut the business mind off because it's always going. Yep. You know, I get emails and texts in the evening and stuff, and, you know, I generally am pretty good at not getting back with people unless, you know, a customer texts me and I really like that customer. Yeah. I'll message back. But, you know, if it's a pain in the butt customer, they're getting a message back in the morning. Yep. But, you know, I say that half jokingly because we have a lot of great clients. Yeah. I mean, we rarely have a client that we're like, oh, man. You know, we have a lot of great clients, and that makes life easy too. But you got to balance that stuff.
Hey, man, this is, I always say stories are data of soul. We talked about it a couple times. For people listening, they should be hearing a really great story on how to build a business that you can say that you're blessed to have the right people and that you're blessed to have the right customers.
Yeah. And we're just the way my, you know, business and personal life have collided and formed this life that, you know, me and Shelly have been talking lately about. We're so excited about the future. You know, we've got our wedding coming up in October. And then next year, we're tearing the roof off our house and we're putting a second story on it. You know, I sold my house, moved in with them. Yeah. And we're going to rent a place and put a second story on our house. And it's just so many exciting things coming up. You know what I mean? The business is growing. Our family, you know, life is growing. And, you know, it's summertime and it's warm outside. And we're, you know, it's just fun stuff going on, you know.
It's so cool. And I'm like, this is a perfect time for you to come on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
So I love it. Thanks a lot, man, for coming on down.
Thanks,
It's been
Jason.
awesome. My
Appreciate you.
pleasure.